can. You just couldn't help but feel like you could do it. So it was bigger than just me, and
Okay.
it was pretty successful.
So let's tie that it back real quick to what Greta was saying, that she looks for a higher power, and we talked about the group, fear of being alone. So all these fears, really, you can overcome. We already seen with one thing. It's people helping you, like this team. It's a mentor helping you. It's a higher power helping you. So all those things will start to play into it. I'm glad you brought that up. Good job. Susan, what about you? Where did you break the board?
I went to a real estate seminar about 15 years ago. And I mean, they did the breaking of the board. I wanted to say it was early on, but my first thought was, are you kidding me? I mean, this is going to be crazy. And they had us write down all the things we were afraid of, and we put it face up to ourselves so we could look at that. And the idea was to break through it then. But the similar thing to Nick, it's like once you have that energy and everyone else has done it, you kind of think, well, I guess I can do it. Normally, my thought process would be, okay, I'll give it a try, but if I can't, I'll just give it up. And the idea that everybody they'd already done it, I hit it the first time and went right through, and I couldn't believe the feeling. It was like, that's something I never in my wildest dreams thought I would wind up doing.
Repeat what you said. You said normally your thought process is, if I can't do it, I'll just give it up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how would that relate to something in isogenics?
Well, if you get rejected, fear of rejection, you get rejected, you start playing these mind games where if you start letting the focus be on that rather than on the positive and replacing the negative thought, you just want to give it up because that didn't feel very good to get rejected.
Well, so my question is, if we can do it with that board and we can do it in one day, then how come we can't? Most of us can't take that same philosophy and apply it to our success in this business. And I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just saying in general, because this is something that holds us back. Like I said, why can't we say, you know what? Let's get over that fear. Let's get through it and stop holding ourselves back mentally. But this is something that some people hold on for years. Some people are stuck in this limbo in this business for years because they have this fear that they're not going to succeed, or they're doing it alone, or whatever it may be that's holding them back. So that's what we need to start working on, guys. That's what we need to start working on. Go ahead, Patty, you go, and then we'll go to Chuck.
Mine is the fear of not being good enough. So right now, this is a fear right now, talking to everyone. So yeah, I can relate to that one. And
what are you good at, Patty? Name one thing that you feel you have mastered in life. I don't care how small or what it is. It has nothing to do. What is one thing that you're good at?
Listening.
Okay. What about? I always see you posting pictures of you like lifting weights. I know you're proud of your lifts and your legs and your kids, and you're climbing that. What about you climbing that? What about you climbing that mountain? Here's the thing that you didn't even think about. Okay, so you climbed a freaking mountain of ice in Alaska that was huge.
3,200 feet.
What got you up the mountain?
I just wanted to see the top. That was my goal. I wanted
You just wanted to see the top. So that's what you thought about.
Yes.
That's what drove you there, is the feeling of being at top.
Yeah.
Okay.
But going down was very scary. I'm
How
not
familiar are you? You live in Alaska, right?
Yes.
Okay, so are you familiar with ice and snow?
Yes.
Okay. So it just goes to show you, who here, like someone from Florida, Susan or Jim, I know you guys are from Florida. I'm from Florida. Liz, you're from, I know you do hiking, so I'm not going to ask Liz, but some people who don't hike, or they're from Florida, who've never seen snow and ice, that might be a bigger fear for them. In other words, you're fearful of speaking, and we've worked in public groups and we've done it, but it has to be continually. If you feel like your fear is that great, then you just have to continue to do it. There's that rule about, if you do 10,000 hours or something, you're going to master it no matter what. John Maxwell at his conference said, I'm not scared about coming out here in front of you guys. There's thousands of people here. And he goes, I'm not nervous one bit. He goes, because this is probably my 5,000th speech that I've given. He goes, so I have absolutely no fear because I know I'm good at this. So you have to continue to speak and do those things that you're fearful of, and you're going to get better at it. Go ahead, Chuck.
Hi, it's Deanna.
Hi, Deanna.
Hi, mine is fear of rejection and fear of failure, and to the point where I have just been paralyzed with this, doing the business. And I've been hearing about shifting the paradigm and, changing my thought process, but I was just stuck in how do I make that happen? How do I change that? And we've been watching some webinars lately, and I just stumbled across this idea that I don't have to let fear control me or take control of my mind. Like, I can visually compartmentalize it and put it in a small little corner in my mind, and it's still there,
Right.
but I will feel like I can still operate now, and that I can still move forward and not be completely paralyzed by the whole thing.
Okay, so perfect. This is a cool breakthrough. So what she's saying is, the one thing she said that you guys have to realize is you can compartmentalize the fear. Once you identify and you recognize it, and you're saying, this is just fear. This right here that I'm dealing with is fear. That's all that it is. And you identify it for what it is. And you know that certain things come with fear. Your heart rate goes up. Maybe some people sweat. Some people might stutter or start to speak slower. So all of a sudden, your fear, once you recognize that and you're putting a label on it and you recognize that those things come with it, then you can start to overcome them. You can start to say, okay, slow my breath down. Take deeper breaths. This is just fear. Start to slow my speech down, because sometimes we speak faster when we're scared. Sometimes it's being able to look someone in the eye, rather if you're fearful and you're talking to them and you're looking off in another direction. So I love the way you said you got to identify it, recognize it,
compartmentalize it.
Yes, and then deal with it. So we're gonna get to some things that Tony said, a couple of suggestions that he's gonna let you guys get in on to overcome that. So we'll go Michelle and Nadia. Go ahead, Michelle.
I still had something to say too, David.
Okay, go ahead, Chuck. Sorry.
What you were talking about board breaking thing, and I didn't have like a board breaking experience like you did, where you go and everybody's breaking the board. What happened was my friend, or my cousin actually, when I was a kid, was in karate, and they were doing board breaking things, and I wanted to know why, if I could break a board. So I went home and tried to break a board and did everything I could to try to break that board. It didn't work. And so I would go back and I'd watch them do karate, and they would break a board, and man, I'd go home and I'd try everything I can. I was even trying to break smaller boards than they had. And so I went to them one day and said, how come I can't break this board? And he said, you got to realize that you have the board the wrong way. And I didn't know what they were talking about. And so they got a board for me to break, and it was easy to break. And so my point is, sometimes we try to do things and we don't know how to do it, right? So if you're doing it the wrong way, it's never going to work.
Right.
And I think Isogenics sets a lot of that stuff up for us, that if we just do it the way they tell us to do it, it's going to work.
Wow, yeah. So we've been talking about that a lot lately, is try not to reinvent the wheel. Try not to look for an easier way. Try just do the thing and create the vision, and if you're really good at creating your vision and just living your purpose and living the Isogenics lifestyle, then everything else takes care of itself. It's when people try and find ways that, no, I can find an easier way, or maybe that way that Isogenics said it's too easy. It's got to be more difficult. So let me find a more difficult way to try and do this. And I know that sounds crazy, but you make a great point. People are not setting the simple vision and doing the tools and doing the things because sometimes it seems too easy. And they say it's got to be harder than that, when it's really not. It's just, you can't reinvent the wheel. So great point. Go ahead, Michelle.
So I've actually realized that I've been fearful my whole life. I've lived my whole life in fear, which is really sad in a way. I mean, I've had a good life, but I've always, even as a kid, I was like, I can't skip school. I can't do, all sorts of things because I was afraid. I didn't take up certain sports because I was afraid of getting hurt and things like that. But so I just have fear all in general. But I have to say, I went through divorce in October of last year, and obviously there's huge fear there of going back and being by myself and, where am I going to live and all these things. And I just had to push through my fear. I realized I was miserable and I didn't want to live my life like that anymore. And I just said to myself, you know what? I'll find a place to live. They're material things. I don't need them. I just need to live a happy life. And in order to do that, I just push through it. And another recent thing happened to me. I had an old manager call me and ask me if I wanted to be a promotion and to move onto his team. And of course, you know, I talked to him for a little bit and I said, well, can I think on it and get back to you? But he really needed an answer quickly. And I just pushed through my fear of, you know, of thinking I was going to fail and not be good at that position. And I said yes. And I am going to start that job on June 1st. And I am super scared. But I think now I can just sort of push myself through that stuff and face my fears and know it's going to be okay no matter what. And talking about higher power, I have my higher power with me all the time. And that higher power helps me with these things. So it's just something I wanted to mention. But of course,
so there's two things. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm shaking talking to you guys because I'm nervous and I sweat and I usually turn bright. So,
well, thank you for sharing that, because I think you brought up some important points. Sometimes as people live their whole life in fear and their whole life. So I'm going to bring up a point really quick. My sister always had this fear of someone breaking in. So she lived in a gated community with a dog, right? She had an alarm system on, and my sister's in her 50s. And this has been a fear. I remember she was babysitting me as a kid, and we sat there, and I was like 8 and she was like 16. And we sat there and looked at the house across the street from us, and she swore she saw a shadow sitting there. And she's 16. And I said, so you're telling me that shadow hasn't moved for a half hour and that's somebody that's in the house across the street? So this fear, and I told her, you're going to be on your deathbed someday. You might be 95 years old and you're going to look back and you're going to be pissed off at all the time you wasted in fear that was going to be what's going to happen to you. And it never happens, right? That never happens. And then Michelle, another thing you said is what happens is a hierarchy of fear. So you lose your job. And at the time, that's the greatest fear. But then what's the greater fear than losing your job? Losing your house. What's a greater fear than losing your house? Maybe it's death. So there's always a hierarchy of fear. And if you're on your deathbed, all of a sudden, how many people have ever heard this? Someone was worried about all these things. Then they're on their deathbed and they said, I don't care if I don't have that job. I don't care if I'm not living in that big house. I don't care anything. I just want to stay alive. So your hierarchy of fears is again, something that we're going to talk about what Tony Robbins says. And again, living your life in fear of stuff that never will happen. So I'm glad you brought that up. Very, very powerful. Nadia, go ahead.
Hi, David. Hi, everyone. Well, this is overcoming one of my fears. I follow Michelle. Well, basically, I have fear of rejection. I'm a total newbie. I'm not even a consultant yet, but Judy's been helping me through, it's just, getting in your head. And that always is like just overcoming that, just if someone says, oh, something bad about, or they just have a negative thought about it, I need to get through moving on, okay, I accept it. I accept that sometimes you have to talk to 100 people to even get 2 people's interest, but it's like, where do you start? It's a whole other thing. It's just getting there and just getting to that point. That's the business side. Okay, so,
but again, you have to go back to something that you're good at, something that you have no fear about. And everybody, I want everybody to do this right now. Everybody think about something that they know that they're good at, and there's absolutely no fear. Maybe it's your job. Maybe you've been doing something for a long time. Maybe it's dancing. Maybe it's playing an instrument. Maybe it's running or lifting. Think back to something that you are super confident in, and there's absolutely no fear involved with it, that if I said do it right now, you would do it. And then think back to how you got good with that, because you've probably done it so many times, and then your mind has erased this fear because it's overcome with confidence and experience. So we have to start relating these things to our business. One of the things that my wife always tells me about, she goes, these groups that you're running in the mornings are great, but we have to start focusing them towards goals and Isagenix. So I want to make this a great group, because so much of what we do is personal development. So much of what we do is really talking about these things. That way we're better in our jobs, or our whatever you want to call it, with Isagenix. So Nadia, you're new. You have to get over this fear of rejection. So let's talk about something that you're very, very comfortable with, and that there's no fear. And then you start to see that and said, this was a process. And then if you just get out there and fall on your face a couple of times with Isagenix, you're going to get better. We always say, without a doubt, there's no question about it, your 100th conversation will be better than your first. Your 100th conversation will be better than your 10th. It'll be better than your 50th. It'll be better than your 99th conversation, because that's just the way it goes. So tell us about what you're good at and why.
Well, I'm pretty good at, like, if I'm passionate about something, I will talk to people like, hey, I was telling Judy, I'm into essential oils. So I've experienced it. I live it. And the thing is with Isogenics, I have like, it gives me energy, but I feel like I don't have my story, and I feel like sometimes, like, for people to relate to, but I am a mom. I have almost a 2-year-old. So in that sense, I guess I could use that. I think my thing was just like, it's getting in my head. I don't have like, oh, it helped me lose weight, or it helped me, do this.
So let's go back to what Patty said about climbing that mountain. What drove her was the thought of getting to the top. Let's go back to what Liz said about the breaking the board. What drove her to break that board is how good she was going to feel when she did it. So then you go back to your why, your goals, and that's how you get past it. So you see how this all happens? You don't have to have your story. You have to have your why. If you tell me, if you're trying to get me to do this with you and you don't have this great, amazing turnaround story yet, but you're telling me why you're doing it and I'm your friend, then I'm going to be inspired by why you're doing it. Tracy, when she got on the other night, she didn't tell us this amazing story about her turnaround. She told us this amazing story about her why, about how crappy she was and what a bad place she was in. And everybody on that call and everybody she would have ever talked to would have been on board with her just based on her passion and emotion and wanted to turn her life around. Remember, there's some people who tell people about the opportunity in this business and they don't even tell them what product it is. And they're like, okay, I'm sold. By the way, what is it that we're doing? I'm on board with you. So you got to switch that thought around and stop getting in your head as to, it's my story. It's more important your why. It's your goal. And that's what people are going to latch onto more than your story.
Yeah, agreed. And then I had, what I noticed is, everyone has different personalities, and I'm sure everyone that's doing the business side, it's just having faith and going through and, following your goals. Now, I just had a quick question. Like, a lot of the leaders, like, were like Tracy, she said she's a type A personality. Do you think it takes or more, the type A's are more like the people that are like perfectionists, they're more prone to getting to the top, or is it just anyone could get to that point? I believe you can if you tell yourself and you work hard. But people that like to talk more or Right.
That's a great question. So everybody always goes to one of the fastest millionaire in the company was Lynn Hagedorn, who's like I think she's a white or a blue, like identifies more with Lynn Hagedorn, if you sat next to her, she would say hi to you with a smile. But, you would never think this person you would never consider her as outgoing. You would never consider her maybe as a yellow or a red if you color coding that person. Now, you can't fumble through this. You can't never learn the comp plan. You can't not know how to sign somebody up. You can't not be aggressive and stumble into millionaire. But you don't have to be the red. You don't have to be type A. You don't have to be super duper competitive. So it all depends on your color coding. There's people all along. That's why it's so important to go to events, because you're going to see people all along the spectrum of personality that have succeeded in this company. But you have to find your niche. So the niche is the key. And then whatever you're not good at, you better find somebody on your team or somebody that can mentor you to help you get there. So we always tell people in Isogenics, you don't have to be great at first. The tools do it for you. The tools could help you. I could send you a video on how to sign somebody up. I could send you a video on the comp plan. I could send you a video on if you're toxic. But eventually, if you want to be the next level of success, you're going to have to get there. And everybody on this call has the ability. We don't have anybody in this call right now that doesn't have the ability to study and learn something, because we're all here for a reason. We all were able to turn on our computers today and follow a simple rule of pasting a URL and hitting, you got here this morning. You woke up, you're clothed. So we all have the ability to continue to learn. You don't have to be Tracy. I'm certainly not Tracy. I'm certainly not Angelique. So I try and use my strengths, and then I try and learn from them and do the best I can to bring my weaknesses up, because here's your strengths, here's your weaknesses. You can succeed like this, but let's put it bluntly, you're never going to get to the top of your potential unless you bring your strengths up. They're never going to equal your weaknesses up. They're never going to equal your strengths. Chris Harder has a great point. He says, why would you spend so much time really struggling on something that you're weak at when if you could outsource it, or if you can find somebody on your team that can help you out with it. But that doesn't mean you don't work on it. You just say, well, I'm never going to be good at signing people up. I'm never going to learn how to do that. So I'll just be the connector. And every time I'm going to sign somebody up, I'll go to my upline and my personally enrolled, my sponsor, and say, hey, you got to sign this person up for me. That's not going to work, right? I don't care how many people, I don't care who we bring on. If every time I have to go on the computer and sign them up, I'm going to get bored of that quick. I'm going to say, you got to learn this yourself. So we'll just end it there. We'll talk about that a little bit more. We got Susan and then Shannon. And then I'm going to, after those guys, I'm going to bring up some of Tony's suggestions, and then we'll continue to chat. Go ahead, Susan.
I want to bring up, it occurred to me when I was trying to think about my fears. I almost think that one of the things might be fear of the unknown. I grew up in a parsonage. My father was a pastor. And so when you're in that environment, you live in a glass house and everyone watches what you're doing at all times. And what I've realized is I've really gotten used to living for the approval of others, just because that's what we kind of had to do in that situation. So if not everybody is on board and doesn't think it's okay, that can be very difficult for me.
Okay.
And so I have to get thinking like, what's important to me, and why do I want this? And just in terms of helping others, not trying to get something from other people.
Okay, so remember that fear of pleasing others and doing that. And then I want Nadia to remember the fear of rejection. I want everybody right now that's remembering their fears. And then when I tell you the couple of things, I want you to plug in how you would plug in these two solutions that Tony said into overcoming those fears. So please hold on to that for 1 second. Go ahead, Shannon.
Hi, guys. I wanted to, Nadia, you really spoke to me about your fears. I'm new also, like 2 months. And I became a consultant fairly quickly, and then I lost it. And then it was after that I decided I was so bent on, I wanted the recognition and I wanted to do it the right way and move up quickly to, I don't know, be accepted. That's always how I've been. And then I realized that I wanted to do it my way because there was no way I was going to come off as authentic. And and I asked kind of around, I had posted about finding a mentor, finding someone to help with in the area. And then I realized that I got to do this shit on my own, and that's fine. So I've been seeking out groups. It's how I found David's calls, and that's how I got connected with Judy. And so I'm a part of, and I love what Tracy said the other night, how she kind of crosses over lines in a good way. And so I'm not accepting what certain people or certain things are telling you have to be or you have to do. And that took a lot of the fear of doing a business away, because my strength is I'm a writer. I study history, and I'm a very eloquent writer. And so for me to think about doing a business or to follow these, the pitch lines that aren't pitch lines was very intimidating at first. And I thought that if I didn't do it these right ways in the right time very quickly, that it would just be a total fail. And once I kind of got that out of my head, and the more calls that I listen to, these really boost my confidence. I'm not type A at all. I'm very much an introvert, and I use my words to reach out to people. And I think that has really helped me kind of come to terms with some of these initial fears and doing things that I know play up to my strengths. And
Shannon, let me ask you a question, Shannon, real quick, because we're talking about type A, so that's something you got into. So one of the questions, so if you're not, and you talk about you're not an extrovert, so I'm assuming if people aren't extroverts, that they're going to wear out their warm market, and then what happens? In other words, that's when you're going to plateau, because if your fear is talking to new people, then how are you going to grow your network? So that's one thing you have to overcome. But the other part is, how do you deal with that? How do you get to the point where you're all right? So we had somebody the other day that only signed up 13 people so far. But out of those 13 people, they had made five consultants. So that's a pretty darn good ratio. So maybe that person's a better nurturer, a better teacher, a better leader one-on-one. So it goes to show you, but you will run out of your warm market. I mean, you will cap yourself off. So while you're doing that, Shannon, you could be a better leader. If you only talk to a couple people, you better hope you get those people and use your strengths and get those people to be consultants and teach them the business, because they can help drive your business more than anything, your 4 PET. But
Yes.
at some point, you're going to have to work on going out of your warm market because you're going to run out of people. So again, there's your strength. Here's your weakness, being more of an introvert. You can still succeed, but you're going to reach that ceiling until you start coming out. So this is something we can talk about.
Kind of reached that ceiling, and I have found that I stopped reaching out to people that I kind of knew. To me, it's been easier to reach out to strangers. So, Facebook's got all these online yard sales for, your area where you live and everything. And I've made connections through that just by happenstance. And so I have been reaching out more and making different connections, but I really found that it's easier to do it with strangers, because then you kind of are searching for that commonality to relate to. And it's not something that it's like, oh, okay, I know you for 2 seconds, I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I do. But it's something that I flag that, hey, down the line, as I get to know this person better, this could be something to introduce them to.
I'm going to get into some, you said something, and I'm going to get into some crazy psychology here real quick before I get into Tony, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but what you said, and you guys are going to freak out. I'm going off the reservation here, but you're going to realize it's true. Some people, right, have a fear. So what they do is they choose like she said, she has a fear sometimes of talking to people. But sometimes strangers are easier to talk to. I mean, I took psychology courses. This is real. I'm making a jump here. This has nothing to do with Shannon. Get that right. But you'll know somebody. How many of you people know somebody that has a relationship fear of commitment and with the opposite sex, but they have absolutely no fear of casual sex or casual relationships, right? So they use that because their biggest fear is to actually have to connect with somebody. Their biggest fear is to actually have to have feelings and love somebody. But this is the person maybe you knew that had absolutely no problem going out and meeting somebody at a club or meeting somebody and having a casual sexual relationship with them, because that was not their bigger fear. So when we get into Tony Robbins, the bigger fears are always overlying. So it's the smaller fears that lead up to them. So it's all coming down to psychology and overcoming our fears. Some people don't even identify it. There's people on this call right now that might say, I don't even know, I don't have a fear. All these people are talking about, I can't make that jump. But what Tony is going to say right here, this is going to help you. And I want you all to think about this, is reasons come first, answers come second. That's what he says. So we go back to Nadia, right? Her answer, I don't have the answers. I don't have my thing, but the reasons are first. And then he says, if you educate yourself, that helps to overcome the fear. So like I said, educating yourself about the product, what Shannon just said, she needs to educate herself, be part of these groups, learn more. And then that helps her overcome the fear. If you want it bad enough, like Liz wanted with the board, like Deanna wants to succeed in this business. Patty wanted to get that at top. If you want it bad enough, that's what Tony says is going to help you get over. But there's 2 things that he says that he does that he recommends. And the first is, the first thing he says is pick something you're more scared of than your fear. Okay? So this is the one thing. Pick something you're more scared of than your fear. So if your fear is talking to people and you're a kind of an introvert, what are you more scared of than that? Failure? That'll drive you. Some people that you know in this company are terrible at talking to people, and that was their biggest fear, or their biggest fear was public speaking or getting on a call like this and speaking up. But they were more scared of failure. They were more scared of letting down their sponsor. They were more scared of not feeding their kids. They were more scared of not being able to pay their mortgage. So what happened is they said, I better get over this fear of not speaking. I better get over this fear of not being able to reach out and talk to strangers about isogenics. I better get over this fear of rejection, because what I'm really scared about is not being able to feed my kids and pay my mortgage. And a lot of what Tracy said the other night was about that. She had all these fears, but her bigger fear was the 2 kids that she had a responsibility to, or going home to the husband that was abusive or alcoholic. And the other thing that I love, and one of my favorites, is what Tony calls the rocking chair test. Does anybody know what the rocking chair test is? Think of this is the best one, and it's so simple. Imagine yourself at 80 years old in a rocking chair, and the things that you didn't do that held you back because of fear. Now, are they going to be like, oh, well, that wasn't that big a deal, or is it going to really wear on you? If you have a bad relationship with your parents, your mom and dad, you haven't spoke to them in 20 years, or your brother or sister or your best friend from college, are you going to feel bad when you're 80 in your rocking chair saying, oh my God, I never rekindled that relationship? Are you going to say, I have a fear of jumping out of an airplane? And I always wanted to be, do a parachute, but I have a fear of jumping out of an airplane. Well, when you're 80, are you going to look back and say, well, darn, I really, really regret that? Or are you going to say, oh, well, not a big deal? That's the question. What's the hierarchy of importance? And it all comes back to the things we've been talking about. It all comes back to Susan. Is her fear of letting people down and fitting in more important than her fear of living maybe the next 40 years of her life struggling to get by with money when she has this vehicle right here in Isogenics? Nadia, is her fear of not having her story, not being able to talk to people, stronger than really succeeding and being able to, raise her child and in the environment that she wants to? These are all these things. So let me ask you a question. What are the things that you're talking about right now that when you're 80 are going to seem like a big deal? Those are the two things. You give it the rocking chair test, and what is a greater fear? What is a greater fear than that? How about this? How about the person who's overweight in Isogenics, right? And their fear may be just failure when it comes to doing this thing. P.K. Smith said, he goes, most of the time it's not people who don't like to taste the shakes. It's not people who think it's too expensive. It's the people who don't want to fear. The fear of failure, and they won't tell you that. The person who has a fear of failure is not going to say, hey, I'm not going to do this system because I'm scared I'm going to fail on this plan like I did every other plan leading up to it. So what you have to ask yourself is, what's a greater fear than that then, man? If I'm talking to you and you're 300 pounds, 400 pounds, because we all have people like that, and their fear is fear of failure, what's a greater fear? How about a fear of you being in the hospital and the doctor saying, you know what, your arteries are clogged, or the doctor saying your heart can't take this anymore? Now, we don't want to fearmonger people into doing this the same way we don't want to fearmonger ourselves into not being successful. We don't want to use it as a tool, because some people do that. Well, if you don't do this, you might die, or you might get kicked out of your house. But you have to make them say it. In other words, what will happen if you don't do this plan? If you're talking to the single mom like Tracy, who's trying to finance 2 kids, and you're trying to tell her about the business, you might say, well, Tracy, if not this, then what? How else are you going to be able to spend time with your children and really do this or compensate for the lack of money without going back to school and spending more money? So in other words, you're just asking them questions. And I'll let you guys kind of, I know, go ahead, Yvonne, go ahead. Bottom left, there you go.
I was trying to figure it out. Well, a couple of things I want to mention, and I know one of the things that we've all touched on is trying to find our story. And in reality, we have more than one story. We have more than one why. I know when I started this 2 years ago, my why is totally different today from what it was 2 years ago. But it doesn't mean that I still can't use that why for a certain person that I meet that, I can relate to from what my previous why was and what my, present why is, and so forth. So I know one of the things I learned at ICU is that we should really come up with 4 different stories for each goal that, each solution that Isogenics has for different people. My why started with my health, 2 years ago. And then it changed into doing my competitions. And now it's more for time and financial freedom. So, we all go through changes, and, it's okay to, be afraid and, feel like, we need to get out of our comfort zone. And we will. We just really have to, totally understand where we are at the moment and then try to move out of that spot. I know when I turned 50 last year, I think that's when it really hit home. What am I doing with my life? I've been in corporate America for so many years, and that's the only thing I knew. I didn't know anything else. And And I just realized, like David said, you get to a point in your life where you're like, what more is there? Is it getting up every morning, driving to work for 2 hours, sitting behind a desk all day, living somebody else's dream, working for somebody else's dream? I just didn't want to do that anymore. So my why right now is to find time and financial freedom so I could spend it with my family and really do the things that I love. So I started my getting out of my comfort zone by jumping out of an airplane that I've been talking about for 5 years that I wanted to do, and I was deathly afraid of it. Who wouldn't be afraid of jumping out of an airplane? But I thought once I took that big leap, that was it. Things just started really moving forward for me. So, I don't know, my thought process here is, whatever you're afraid of, just like little by little, it doesn't have, you don't have to jump out, like out of an airplane, but just every day take a step toward getting out of that comfort zone that you're in. And by the time you know it, you're going to be out of that comfort zone, because you're going to come into a spot where you're going to be into another comfort zone. So you just have to keep the process going. One of the things that I started doing was meditating about a month ago. And when I first started meditating, I had to sit in a certain position that was so uncomfortable. And I had to sit there for 20 minutes. But a week went by, 2 weeks went by, that position got comfortable. So what I did was I shifted it. I got myself uncomfortable again. And, that's kind of what I've been doing with my life right now, is getting into uncomfortable positions just to get out of the comfort zone and just keep moving. For me, I'm growing that way. It's working for me. Anyway, that's something I wanted to share.
Let's take a poll on fear, how big of a role it's playing in our lives. This is just in general. It could have everything to do with isogenics. It could have everything to do with personally getting out of the house, whatever it is. But if you feel 3 would be, let's do it just 1, 2, and 3. So 3, you live with a lot of fear. 2, you live with a minimal amount of fear, and 1, you live with barely any. How many people would say 3 live with a lot of fear on a daily basis? Okay, good. Being honest. 2, how many people live with somewhat? Okay, and then how many people feel like they're kind of they don't really have a lot of fear? Okay. All right. Well, let's talk. Mary, why do you raised your hand, Mary? Let's hear from you. Why don't you think you live with a lot of fear?
I don't have a lot of fear. I know where I'm going to go when I die. And if I wake up, yay, hello, good morning, and fear, I don't know. I really struggled with this since on Tuesday. I thought, what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? What am I, and I kept thinking, what's wrong with me? Why don't I have a fear? And then I got, to thinking, maybe I'm afraid of success. Maybe I'm afraid of making it. Maybe I'm masking it. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you know what? So Tony, when we went to the Tony Robbins thing, Tony says, pick something in your mind, a childhood experience, and that went wrong, or a really hurtful experience, and we're gonna multiply it. And I couldn't sit there and think, and people around me were screaming, and they were getting this thing, and they were just regressing. And I felt like something was wrong with me because I didn't have that experience. So exactly. It's not wrong if you don't have that fear. And I noticed that you and Greta both raised your hand when I said you don't live in a lot of fear. And both you and Greta really said that you really, the higher power and that fear. So again, I don't want to get into a religious experiment here, but certainly that has a lot to do with your faith. So I admire that. The other part is, if we're living with a lot of fear, the people that were at 3 now, let me ask you a question. If you were a 3, how do you think this is going to change? In other words, this is a simple 1-hour conversation we're having in the morning. If you feel like fear is holding you back, whether it's in the business or in life in general, and you raised your hand for a 3, and there were several of you, what's it going to take? In other words, you don't want to be here like my sister, who's been worrying about this fear since she was 15 or 16. You don't want to be 40 years later going, oh my God, this same fear is on my shoulders, right? So what can we do? I want to see somebody say, what are you going to do? And how much is it holding you back? How much, that's the question. How much is it holding you back? I'll go back to what Tony said, and I want you guys to think about this, and somebody respond to it. Are you more afraid that something is going to hold you back. Is there something greater? What is greater than that fear of failure? Okay? At 80 years old, are you going to be saying, I can't believe I did this all this time because I picked this? What is something I'm more scared of than these simple things, whether it be public speaking or talking to people?
Can I?
Go ahead, Mary.
When I very first started out in isogenics, I like really started out really strong, and it was like I just went really fast, you know. And then when things started slowing down, you know the thing with my mom and everything, and we got her settled. And now I'm starting back, and Valerie and I are doing weekly launch parties and things like that. And I had an experience where this girl had pursued me. And so I went to her house, I was talking to her, and then it was no, no, no. Okay, well, all the old negatives started creeping back in from when I very first got started, and I started to get down, and Valerie was an awesome support system. I called her on the phone, and we were talking, and it was like, okay, Lord, I'm not going to go back to that fear. I'm going to roll through this. And to get over that fear of that rejection from that girl, I got on the phone and called another girl. So I kind of hit it head on instead of like crawling up and thinking, oh, I can't do this, you know, getting on the couch, maybe watching Lifetime. Instead of doing that thing, I put that girl to bed. And I got up and I called another girl. And yeah, she was going to come to the party and all like that. And she didn't show up, but that didn't stop me. Today, I'm going to contact the people who didn't show up. And I have to get 3 people every day. And so what? I'm not hitting it right now. So what? People aren't connecting or they're not coming to. That's okay, because it's like you told us a long time ago. You got one hand forward, reaching out, moving forward, and my other hand is constantly back here, waiting for those people. And that, I don't want to be fearful in this. It's a blessing. And like Angelique said, how can you not share this with somebody, Mary? How can you not? It would be so wrong for us not to give this to other people. So I'm not some saint over here or nothing like, oh, I ain't afraid of nothing. I ain't like that. I'm just saying that when the fears come along, I do like you said, I have a higher power, and then now I just squash it, baby. Just get on it, right? Hit it head on. Yeah.
Mute.
Do I?
David's on mute. I got to talk to you then, Mary, and I wanted to talk to what you're saying about. Sorry, David, you are on mute. So
no, go ahead. Go ahead. Go first.
I love what you're saying about when that fear was creeping in, that you just jumped on it and went right back in there to try again, make, like buck off the horse, get back on it. And
yeah.
And that's what my fear was this week. It hit me square in the eyes Tuesday morning is I put out my Facebook post. I thought I was coming from a pure of heart intention. The first person that saw it did not see what I was intending and came at me hard with telling me I was wrong. And honestly, it shook me to my absolute core. I at that moment, it was the day before my 1-year anniversary, I was going to quit. This business was over for me because I thought it had just completely flipped my personality.
Yep.
And I put on my running shoes and I went outside for an hour. And by the time I came back in, I had a Facebook inbox from a lady I'd reached out to 6 months ago saying, I need to start today. And so I talked to her, we enrolled her, and I put that Facebook post back up with a note saying, hey man, you got it wrong the first time. Because it's my truth. It's what I wanted to say. And even though it scared the shit out of me when she pointed me out and said, you're doing it wrong, I honestly thought, yeah, she's right, I am. And then I realized, screw that, I'm doing it my way.
That's
and I'm doing it for a pure of heart. So I did what you would have wanted me to do, Mary, in my own way. And it's been a good week from there on in. It feels
you bless people. You kept on because you know that they're more important. It's more important. Get out of our head. That's what I've done. I've got out of my own way. And is for others, and you're really doing it. And
You're right.
And Mary, you're missing out because Mary, you have a higher purpose. That's what I was going to say. She has a higher calling that she's not fulfilling right now, because she should be one up on stage talking to 10,000 people instead of 12 here, because you say it, and your business can improve, but you should have a fear of not fulfilling God's purpose for you, because God's purpose for you is to really reach out. Because even Taylor's sitting here, and he made a message to me. He goes, "Can we get Mary to come on every morning for 5 or 10 minutes?" Because you have a way of talking to people, and you're fearless, and you're not talking to enough people. You have the ability to inspire people, and you should be talking to thousands of people instead of dozens of people, because that's your calling, you know. And I truly believe that, and we see that every time you get on here. So you just have a way. You have something about you need to share with the world. We had
got to get a venue.
Yeah, we had Greta. I don't know if she still was it. No, not Greta. I think she left. There was someone that wanted to say, but I'll let Judy go because she's got her hands up. Oh, Celeste. Celeste was first. Celeste, you wanted to say something. So let's go Celeste and then Judy. I'm trying to get you guys in the right order. Go ahead, Celeste.
Okay, so you were just talking about what is your one of your greater fears, and I've always lived a pretty fearful life, held myself back from having experiences that could have really been fun. And now that I have Cade, who's 5, I don't want him to be fearful. I don't want him to miss opportunities. You know, I'm terrified of roller coasters. So I've started with the baby roller coasters and riding the roller coasters. I don't want him to miss that. I don't want him to, I feel like I've missed out on some opportunities because, I wish I had Mary growing up in my teenage years, to get people out of my head and just live bold. And that's what I'm hoping to learn with Isogenics, is to live bold and bless people, because not only do the products make me feel great, but this community makes me feel great. And I don't know. I just definitely don't want Cade to miss out on life because he's afraid to try. And I feel myself taking what I learned here and putting it in on people in my life, and then also feeding it into Cade.
So that's why you need a vision board. That's why you need Cade at the top of your vision board. You need to see that every day. You need to have that in your head every day. You need someone that is on your team, your enrolling sponsor, to say every so often, hey, you're doing this for Cade. Remind yourself, because sometimes we'll get lost in the everyday happenings of life. We have our goals. One of my biggest fears is that we have this opportunity right now, and I want to do it right now while I have the energy, the ability to travel, while I can build my body. And I don't want to wait and say, geez, I had this opportunity and I didn't do it when I had all my resources. I mean, I'll be 50 before you know it, and I'll be 60 after that. So I want to take it now and build an empire for later on. Okay, and I think a lot of you guys feel that same way. Go ahead, Judy.
Relating back to what Nadia said, and you guys who struggle with not having a story, I felt that way for a long time because I didn't have this huge impactful transformation picture that a lot of people have. I've never been overweight, but I went ahead and put my business out there anyway. And this was way before the show that I just did. And what I realized is that there's always going to be at least one person that can relate to your story, and they're going to thank you. And they may not even tell you at the time, but they will thank you for putting it out there, because it's that person who says, I didn't think there was anyone else like me that can relate. So it's if it's just one person, that should fuel your fire to be like, I'm not alone. I don't have to have the same story that someone else has. And then as it relates to, I really feel like fear itself is fear of not knowing the outcome. So what Susan said. So how many of you guys are parents? How many moms, dads? Okay. So this is the analogy I like to remember, is that you don't wait to have a kid until you know their outcome of who they're going to be as an adult. So you don't say, I'm not going to have a kid until I know that they're going to be a lawyer and they're going to do this, that, and the other. You just do it and you wing it along the way, right? You are not perfect. You take it one day at a time. So that's somewhat a fear of mine because I don't have children yet. So, I have the things in my head well, what if I can't do this? What if I'm not a great parent? So that's something that every one of you raised your hands, you're good at, because you are a parent. You have mastered it because it's what you're doing every day. So if nothing else, hone in on that. That's a great example of doing it and not knowing what your outcome is. So apply that to the other fears that you have going on in life.
That's a great point, right? I mean, you don't plan it. I love that analogy. You don't plan on being a great parent. You just do it because you have to. And you make your mistakes along the way, but every day that's the most important thing to you. So that's why you do it. That's a great analogy. Excellent. Floor is open. Anybody can talk now. What I want you to say, one thing is we have to make this something where we do something. So I want everybody to pick a fear and say, I want to do it either today or tomorrow, and I want to get over it. Now, if you make an appointment to go jump out of a plane today, it's not my fault if your parachute doesn't open. But I want you guys to take some action, and just not talk about it, but take some action on that fear. Go ahead, Taylor.
I just want to encourage everybody not to over spiritualize things, but like Liz earlier was talking about, like her personality. Well, I think the world and society tells you that you are a certain way. You're introverted, you're extroverted, you have a fear of this, you have a fear of that. Like, I think personally that's the devil. He's engineered us believing that we have to be a certain way. So if you want to be an outgoing and you don't want to have any challenges, you have the willpower and you have all the resources to do that. And so if it's, all that is lies from him. He doesn't want you to be able to approach people if that's not what you're good at. He doesn't want you to have courage or, any of the resources to be able to do what it takes. And so I just would challenge everybody to get out of your own mind and look at yourself and say, I'm made in the image of God. He made me in his image. And so if I am like him, I am outgoing, I'm introverted, I'm extroverted, I'm all the above. And I have the potential to be whatever I want to be. And so if you want to be good at technology, you go to youtube.com and you learn how to be good at technology. Don't let your generational thing where, my generation, we just didn't grow up with it, so I'm not going to be good at it. You can be good at it if you desire that. There's nothing that can stop you from being what you want to be. That's what I have to say.
Awesome. I think everybody is reading the comments. Everybody totally resonated with that. And that's something that we have to agree on is that, look, he's so right. Things are holding you back, and it's not you that's holding yourself back. I mean, it is you that's holding yourself back. Nothing else can prevent you. Your willpower, your desire to do that is stronger than anything else. You just have to realize it. And once you realize it, and take action. And that's why we're talking about this. It's not good enough to get on this call every Tuesday and Friday and talk about it and feel good about it. Because there's a lot of people who will talk about it and feel good about it, and they'll be in the same place. You have to take action, whether it's a good example, whether it's something as easy as learning technology or getting out there and interacting with people. Don't let that fear get to you. Don't let the devil win. Don't let him tell you that you can't do something, because right now the only thing holding you back is you. We've all overcome. We've all had the ability to crawl forward in this company. Some of us have made bigger leaps than others. But there's no timeline right now. Today could be day one of you saying, you know what? I'm going to do something about it. So remember this conversation. Remember your fears. Remember everybody else in this conversation talking about your fears. And then you're going to say, look, God, I'm not the only one. And then all of a sudden, well, what can I do about it? If nothing changes, nothing changes. You need to.
I just want to say something really quick. I think it's really important to surround ourselves. Taylor, that was effing awesome, because I totally agree with everything you said there. But one of the things that we really need to do is surround ourselves with positive people that will support us no matter what. And I believe society has conditioned us to be a certain way. Our upbringing has conditioned us to be a certain way. And, I know about 2 years ago when I really was thinking about doing the whole isogenics thing, my mother, all she kept saying was, oh my God, you're going to leave a good job, your insurance, you're this, you're that. And I think I was home probably about 2 months ago, and she has seen my, transformation from when I started to now, how unhappy I've been with my job, just miserable. I mean, so miserable. And, she's seen me break down and cry. And, I just, I was always in moments where I just felt so lost. And the last, 2 months ago when I was home, I finally said to him, I said, look, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to be, leaving my job probably in 3 months. I'm going to be doing this full time. I have to give this a shot. If it works, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But at least I know I gave it a chance. And, you know, like talking about the rocking chair, I just know that I can't live not knowing if I really gave this my all. And she looked at me for the first time and she said, you know what? You are so unhappy. I see it. You're not the same person. You know, you're not the same Yvonne. And if this is what you need to do, you do it. I'm here to support you. I have an extra bedroom if you need a place to stay because you can't afford to have your own place or whatever. She goes, this is what you want to do. You have to go for it. And I have the full support of my family, my closest friends. My friends who don't support me, that's okay. I don't need that. What I need is support. And I'm getting it. And I think that's really helping with my confidence and being unsure and doubtful about what I'm doing. So,
well, look at how everybody, you made a great point. Look at how everybody loves these groups. They need it. And that is one of your things that you can attract people. You have to attract them with the culture of Isogenics, the supportive culture. A lot of you guys love the products. A lot of you guys love getting that check and the referral bonuses. But you got to enroll people in the culture, enroll people in the support. So many of you guys right here are so powerful. Everyone that speaks is powerful. And you guys just need that venue. Not that your ultimate goal is to speak to larger groups of people, but certainly Yvonne could be speaking to larger groups of people. Certainly Mary and Taylor, all you guys. But you're going to need that success behind you in order for people to say, now you have more of that success. In other words, you have to continue to build on it, and then your audience will get bigger, right? Everybody here could be doing their own Zoom call to a larger audience. Everybody here could be doing their own events in their neighborhood. Everybody here, I'm going to say it again, should be doing their own events in their neighborhood. Yvonne is speaking life into us. Mary is speaking life into us. You should be speaking life into 200 or 300 people in your community. That's your goals. That's how you're going to grow your business. It does good for us. We all love it. We're all going to leave here feeling good. The dozen of us that are still on this call are all going to leave here feeling good. But is that all you want? Yeah. I mean, sometimes if you affect one person, that's all you need. But you guys have the power to do more. You have the power to do more. And it's got to meet results. It doesn't do good enough to preach in your living room. You have to preach to the masses. You have to get your voices out there. And that's going to take a little bit of success to get behind you so people will listen to you more. I hate to say it, but yeah, you know, the stars behind your name, sometimes people want to know that before they, you know, if you have one star, hey, I've been in the business for 5 years and I'm a consultant. Come listen to me talk. It's not going to happen. You may have the greatest talk ever, but you guys need to all reach people. And it's not about stars. It's about reaching people to enroll them. How many people are fearful? Everybody's fearful. There's 10 people on your block right now that are living in fear that aren't hearing this conversation. So what are you going to do about it? You got to get to them. You got to enroll them in the culture of the company. Go ahead, Shannon. We're going to wrap it up soon after this.
I just wanted to say that my one fear that I don't know how to get over is letting go of my past, which is what essentially brought me here, and I feel that by truly putting some things behind me that I've truly moved on, and it like my dad's death, I still kind of hold on to that a little bit, and I know that it still tends to pull hard sometimes, but I feel that if I really let go of that or come to peace with that, then I will have moved on, and that will have been just a memory, a kind of a fading legacy, and that I don't know how to do.
Well, okay, Shannon. So what fear overcomes? What emotion overcomes fear? So if fear is an emotion, and fear we all deal with, and it's an emotion. What emotion? Name me one that's going to overcome fear. We're talking about your dad's. Talking about your dad's death. What's going to overcome that?
I don't want to be in the grief that I've been taking towards.
How about a little bit of anger? I mean, people look at anger as a bad emotion, right? I look at anger sometimes as fuel, right? You can use that. Get a little bit. You got to get something to push you. I can't put myself in your position. I don't want to trivialize it, but there's other things. So sometimes this fear is an emotion. You have to meet it with another emotion. Sometimes it's joy, it's happiness. Sometimes it's anger. Sometimes it's like we said earlier, it's a greater fear. So what you're talking about now is this fear, and you're relating it to your father's death. So your greater fear should be like, I don't want to live a life that I'm disappointing. I'm going to get personal. Angelique here is dealing with her mother, and so much of the what goes on. And we've talked to people who are spiritual. We've talked to people who are believers in God, and they say, you know what? The worst thing would be for you to not live a life full of purpose. Sometimes what Judy said about being a parent, your greatest role as a parent is what you provide for your kids, the platform that you give them to succeed. So if you're sitting there feeling sorry for yourself, if you're sitting there saying, well, my father passed away, or my mother passed away, or a husband or a wife, and you know what? Then get your butt off and use a little bit of determination, a little bit of anger, and say, I'm not going to let their passing go in vain. I'm going to prove to myself that they lived for a reason, that my dad poured good stuff into me, and that I will prove to myself one day that I will make that person proud. Angelique, her mom did a wonderful job of raising her. That was her purpose in life, right? We can't look at the other things that didn't happen for her. We have to look at the fact that she created this amazing woman who's going to touch so many of people's lives, and she already has touched people's lives. So you have to take your fear, and sometimes fear and sadness live in the same place. How many people, there's a great thing, a children's movie that came out. What's it called, babe? The one that Ella watches about the emotions? Inside Out. If you guys have children, watch Inside Out. If you don't have children, watch Inside Out. It's all about the emotions that live in the head. And sometimes fear and anger, they hang out. Or sometimes fear and sadness hang out. And happiness is on the other side. But you have to be able to control your emotions and always use the one that's going to push you a little bit higher. I want you guys to right now make a commitment to knock the shit out of fear in one way or another. If you use a higher power, if you use God, that's great. If you want to use your other fear that's greater, your fear of failure to move you, then that's great. If you want to use your happiness and your light, then that's great. If you want to use anger, I use anger all the time. Anger is one of my biggest motivators. I use it in the gym. I call myself names. I look at myself in the mirror and I say, filthy things to myself because I know that I have more to push and I know I'm giving it a half-ass effort. In the company, you got to use whatever you can to overcome fear. And the reason I want to talk about fear today, and the reason why we're taking 15, 20 extra minutes on this is because I know each one of you, a fear is holding you back. Each one of you right now, a fear is holding you back, and chances are you're not going to do nothing about it. Chances are you're going to get off this call, you're going to feel great, but you're not going to do nothing to really tackle that fear. And a year from now and 5 years from now, God forbid you're sitting in that rocking chair at 80 years old and you look back on this conversation on the 6th of May, 2016, and you say, I remember having that conversation about fear. God, I never did anything about it. And here I am living with all this regret. Overcome it. Overcome it, whatever level it's on, and get out there. And the only thing that's really going to overcome fear is to do it. Because everybody, the first time you go in the water and you're a kid, you're scared you're going to drown. And then what happens? Before you know it, if I pushed you guys in the water right now, there'd be absolutely no fear because you can all swim. How does that happen? Because you get better at it. Because all of a sudden this confidence in your head goes. So get out there and do something and have a great day. And all of you guys inspire somebody else. All of you guys talk about fear in Isolation today. Talk about fear on your regular Facebook feeds. In your conversations, meet somebody today and talk about fear. Bring it up and ask them what they're going to do. Maybe they're the person that's afraid to talk to you and you're going to enroll them in the business today. Or you're going to make a huge difference in their life. Maybe it's the person who's fearful of losing their job or their loved one, and you're going to overcome it. Use that emotion, Shannon. I see you wiping your tears. Use that emotion. Overcome it. You have support here of everybody. I love what Taylor said. Do not let the devil creep into your life today and keep you from doing what you've been called to do. Get over it. Use your friends. Use this community. And go out there and make a difference. And let's end it on that note, and I want to thank you all for having a great, great morning. Live your life with intention. Live your weekend with intention. Make a difference.